Welcome to Global Investment Voice, your premier podcast for diving deep into the world of investment migration. Are you dreaming of a second or third passport? Then join us as we traverse the globe, exploring the ins and outs of the U.S. EB-5 immigrant investor visa, uncover the secrets of golden visas, and delve into the many residency and citizenship by investment programs. Each episode is packed with exclusive insights from top industry experts. Whether you're an investor, developer, or a visionary entrepreneur, we're here to guide you through the complexities of global investment migration. And who better to navigate this journey with than your hosts, the dynamic legal duo of this industry, Mona Shah and Rebecca Singh. Plus, hear directly from a lineup of global investment migration leaders. So, buckle up and tune in to Global Investment Voice, where your global investment journey begins and expands.
Hey, Rebecca, 1 week on and the gold card is still the top of everybody's mind in investment immigration here in the US.
Oh, yes. I can't tell you how many calls have we received just with interest, even in the gold card.
Yeah. But one of the biggest differences, which everyone seems to want clarification on, is the fact that the gold card is a donation, which means that you don't receive a return of your capital, whereas EB-5 is not. EB-5, you can get your money back with interest.
Yes. Well, one of the other differences I think we get asked a lot too is that, people think, yes, 1 million donation, but, we don't know if that's for a family. Is that per individual? So it could end up being costly, which was the EB-5 program is only at 800,000 for those in a TEA or rural area. So we could, you could look at a larger donation.
True. But 800,000 up until, at this point, September of 2026. So it's not an indefinite 800,000.
No.
But here's the thing. A lot of people have said, look, with EB-5, you've got to go through the whole caboodle of USCIS agreeing and approving the project and approving your source of funds. And then how do you know that the project is going to return capital? Because unfortunately, we have lots of examples where projects and good projects have not returned capital. And when I say not returned capital, I mean, yeah, you know what I mean. It's not just the fact that it's not necessarily connected with fraud. It could just be market conditions and whether or not it's a good investment.
Yeah, well, we've seen that too. After COVID, we've seen a lot of bankruptcy cases. So there are times where, you got to conduct your due diligence, right, on these projects.
You do. But, people like lawyers like ourselves, we do a certain amount of due diligence for PPMs and stuff. But the due diligence companies who are out there, they're really the ones who do this properly, who are financial advisors, etc.
Yeah. So we have, you have financial advisors. You have, broker dealers who are out there and is putting in as much of, how much due diligence do they go into for these projects, EB-5 specifically.
That's right. And it's really, we thought that it would be a good idea to really cover what due diligence they actually do and what you should be looking at if you really want to be sure when you're going into a project. Because let's face it, Rebecca, most people are not familiar with either the US landscape or the cultural stuff. They don't know really what to look for.
Well, I think they also just get confused. There's so many projects out there from, just the differences with a regional center versus project developers. Who are they? So today, Mona, we have Radhika Chopra from InvestAmerica. Welcome, Radhika.
Thank you, ladies, for having me on the show, and I'm excited to join you. I think this is a really important topic to touch on, especially given all the noise around the gold card.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
And I have to say, Radhika, we've thoroughly enjoyed working with you, except that next time you go out and visit these ski resorts, I want to come along too.
We would love to organize that. We will definitely keep it in mind.
So tell me a little bit about your company, first of all. You guys, what do? Do you actually go out and do diligence on projects before you decide to represent them? How does it work?
Yeah, no, 100%, Mona. So we've been around similar to yourselves at the law firm. We've been around in the industry for over 10 years. And we've basically made ourselves known for being able to look at the landscape of the EB-5 investment opportunities out there and analyze those to really pick the ones that are best in class, if you will, based on a diligence process that we have internally. And it's based on a multitude of factors, but what it comes down to is really just picking ones that are well-sounded investments, not only from a financial perspective, but also from an immigration perspective as per what's required for EB-5 criteria.
Right. And also, we've had some great clients that we've shared that have been, I won't like to use the word anal, but very concerned.
They've done their homework.
So they should. But here's the thing, Radhika, if somebody's coming from overseas, they don't really necessarily understand culture. Let's take the ski resort, for example, pertaining to a ski resort, or the difference in finances in an area which is necessarily rural with a smaller community, as opposed to, say, an urban TEA in New York City, for example.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you're touching on. Everyone thinks about these investments differently. To your point, some investors like to think about it in terms of what they're comfortable with understanding. And in those cases, perhaps a ski resort is not something that they're familiar with, but really taking that aside and thinking about it as a pure investment is the best way to analyze these.
Right.
And so that's the way we like to think about it at InvestAmerica. And that's the way we try to help our investors think through the process and really selection process.
Oh, well, I'm already convinced you're speaking so well to us.
Yeah. So, well, I want to go back to what Mona was saying, the difference between, you have the difference within the projects, a ski resort versus a hotel. But as Mona said, what about projects choosing something that's in rural? Because that's popular with, especially those from India and China who could potentially go into backlog. Do you see the difference between a rural project and TEA projects, and how do you analyze those?
Yeah, I think there is a notion out there, Rebecca, that, because it's rural, it has a higher risk level attached to it from an investment perspective.
Oh, for sure. That's exactly what a lot of people think.
Yeah, a lot of people think that, and that's what a lot of people are told. But I think just like anything, when you think about things at a high level, that may be true at a high level, but you really have to look at it granular, right? And the way I like to describe, our role in the EB-5 process is similar to like when you're looking at real estate and purchasing a home, you could either look at these on your own and, you don't always have to use a broker in the US markets to find a home and purchase it. But if you use a broker, if you use an advisor in the space, they're kind of looking at these homes day in and day out. And so they know the market better.
Yeah, for sure. And also, I think you have the ability to go in and ask those awkward questions or come up with these awkward questions, which perhaps, we wouldn't necessarily see. Because, hey, let's face it, most immigration lawyers, even people who do EB-5, are not really sort of akin to some of the issues that would come up in these projects, like capital structuring, for example.
Exactly. And to your point, we've run the gamut of working with different investors, between those that are more wanting to know as many details as possible to those kind of wanting to be less involved. And I think whichever direction an investor goes, knowing what you're getting into is very important. And part of that is knowing where you sit on the capital stack, what that means in terms of your return to capital when you look at the PPM, and kind of diving into that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. We are looking at different scenarios coming up. We already have people who are frustrated with the system and who might just go into the gold card because they think that they don't have to worry about all the, adjudications. But at the same time, as Rebecca, if we do have to pay $1 million per person, then it's not going to be feasible. If you even have husband and wife, that's $2 million, which is gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot.
I was going to say, I think just too, Mona, if they're saying they're going to use visas from the EB-1 and EB-2 categories, now we're looking at the price. We're also looking at backlogs there as well. So you could potentially, and then what is the adjudication process for the gold card? Again, everything's still up in the air, but we could potentially see, will they be sourcing funds as well? So you could still potentially go through almost the same thing, except for it's a donation versus an at-risk project, where you could potentially, you have a chance to get back your money as well.
Well, we'd like to say more than a chance because
Yeah.
the projects, Radhika, do you feel overall that the projects have got better now from how they used to be? Because, there seems to be, although there's a lot of projects out there seem to be less regional centers and sort of less of the bigger players. So many people we know, for example, just have not gone ahead and continued with the program.
Yeah, I think that is right. I mean, I would imagine you may know a little bit more about the regional center landscape, but there definitely has been a reduction in regional centers pre-RIA to today. And I think what you're seeing, to your point on the investments and the projects opportunities out there, you're seeing that they're definitely more structured. The developers and the regional centers have thought through a lot more elements and have documentation to support a lot of it and are willing to answer a lot more questions and know the answers to those questions because of what the program went through in the past. And, it's almost like learnings from mistakes, if you will.
True, that's true. But a lot of times people who call us, they've already started looking out there and there are only like a handful who advertise. And
Correct.
I don't want to really mention any names here, but some of the ones who advertise aren't necessarily very good. So I do advise. I said, look, good to have advice. Go and look at the project. I'm a big believer that when you go and visit, it makes a difference. Some people don't really necessarily agree with me on that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's very important to go visit the project. After all, I think ironically, a lot of people that don't use this program seem to have this notion that that people that utilize the program, meaning the investors themselves, that this amount is not a large portion of their net worth, but that's actually not always true, especially not with investors I've worked with in my time in the EB-5 world. And if you think about this being a large portion of your net worth, you should want to go see the project that you're putting your capital into.
Yeah, for sure.
Real estate is very much an in-person
Oh,
business.
yeah. I totally agree. And Rebecca, we explain to our clients who have a problem with understanding that there are two types of regional centers. There's the developer regional center who will be the developer and also have a regional center or may rent a regional center, but you're speaking directly with the developer as opposed to a third party regional center who just basically act like a bank.
Yes. Well, I think that's important to note who are, at the end of the day, the regional center is important, right? Because you want to see, do they have the experience? Do they know how to run an EB-5 project? But at the end of the day, it's the developer that you really want to speak with. That's the person who's running this project day in, day out, right? So I think that's very, very important.
But Radhika, this is something that we over the years have seen. How do companies like yourself behave? Do you guys go to the developer, even if it's the regional center itself who come to you?
We do, yes. Part of the diligence process is connecting with the developer directly to understand their history, their track record with EB-5.
They may never have done EB-5 because a lot of developers have never done. Yeah.
Yeah, that does exist. And it's not necessarily a negative. We've worked with developer regional centers that it's been their first EB-5 project.
Yeah.
I think in that, every project has its own pros and cons. And so in some projects, you may have a con where this developer or regional center has never done EB-5 before. But on the flip side, you may have them investing a significant amount of their own capital, which kind of provides some sound backing, if you will, that there's confidence in the project from both parties involved. And there are different elements to bringing, if you will, providing evidence to support the con to become not as large of a risk.
Rebecca, do you feel like it's a big disadvantage when we deal with developers who've not done EB-5 before?
No. And I say that because when we're dealing with developers, and we ourselves conduct our due diligence, right? When we're doing project documents, it's experience as well. Like you said, there's many factors. A developer experience. So in the field of expertise, if it's construction, if you've been in the ski resort business for X amount of years, it's just kind of knowing what you're doing. And like Radhika said, it's the financials. Do you need EB-5 capital? So how much of your developer's equity is going in? Do you have bank financing in place? And not just for the investors. We've seen this with USCIS too, who are coming back with questions. Again, another topic for another day, but it's just interesting to see, what is out there and any new projects come out, we've seen USCIS giving approvals as well.
But with regards to the rural side of it, I mean, we just recently, we discussed this on our bankruptcy podcast, Rebecca. We saw a project in Utah, which has gone bankrupt, Waholi, I believe.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, again, it could be, you just never know. You look at the background, you want to look at many factors and they can all fall into place. But eventually, like you said, if COVID hits or there's some bankruptcy or something happens, you just never know. But at the same time, I think you need to put in your due diligence.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, Mona and Rebecca. I think doing your due diligence is very important, but even aligned with that, there's so many layers. And to your point, there are factors that you may not consider through your due diligence, but what you want to understand is in the scenario where maybe those factors that you haven't considered come true, like a bankruptcy, where does that put you? And what could that possibly look like in different scenarios?
Yeah, where you are in the capital stack. But Mona, we get this question asked all the time, whether or not, is it important for the I-956F approval? So as we know, RIA 2022 brought in that you have to have the F filing first, but you can have investor petitions filed just 10 days after. So you don't have to wait for the approvals.
Yeah, so that's a very important point because we are approaching now very soon only a year away from the sunset of this program. And USCIS are taking their sweet time in answering, in approving cases. Radhika, this is going to be something that is really going to be something you guys are looking at. People may want to invest in a project which doesn't have its F filing approval yet. What's the strategy when they haven't got this? And we have a time deadline because right now people are saying, well, I want an approved project. But say a really good one comes up and it hasn't got its approval. How are you going to deal with this?
We have come across, so there's a wide gamut. I think you're absolutely correct. And it depends on the scenario. So I think if you're looking at developer, regional center, that this is their first EB-5 project, you're going to want to see that project approval in hand. You're not going to want to take that risk. But if you're going with a regional center developer that's already done this before in the past and has shown history of getting approvals,
I don't agree with you there, Radhika. I mean, Rebecca, we've seen many regional centers suddenly weirdly get a denial, right?
Yes.
I think that's fair. I think generally we found that if it's a regional center and developer that have worked together before on past projects, and a lot of times I'll say it's a project perhaps that has come back to the market once or twice for the same development. You've already seen that the first tranche got approved, so there's precedent there on the exact same project.
Yeah, I think too, like you said, the experience as well. If they need to know what is USCIS looking for ultimately at the end of the day, right? Because putting financing, putting a business aside, the end of the day, what is immigration looking for? And they do. We have seen, Mona, they have come back with RFEs and NOIDs on issues that we didn't see in the past. So they're coming up with new things every day. So you need to make sure this project is shovel ready.
Yeah, you'd be surprised, Radhika, some of the issues that USCIS have come back on. They go into who's actually signing the loan. Oh, by the way, it's on document. The X signed the loan and he hasn't got an H filing. So we're now going to deny your case because of that. And strict issues of this nature, which you perhaps wouldn't even have sight of. So I don't necessarily say just because people have had it before, or even if phase 1 got approved, phase 2 it's more likely than not it would get approved, but you can't say for sure.
I think that's totally fair. And actually, what you guys are speaking to just goes to show that the program has really revamped itself and that even USCIS is doing certain levels of diligence. And so in terms of, going back to the argument between the Gold Card and the EB-5 program, you can just kind of also speak to the fact that the program has been around for much longer, that there are layers of underneath it where you can actually see a return of capital because there are so many stakeholders involved in analyzing these projects.
So, Mona, Radhika, you hear a lot of projects out there that we say, oh, it hasn't paid back or went into bankruptcy. But realistically, in EB-5, it's really just a handful. when you're comparing it to the gold card program, I mean, yes, there's a potential that you could lose your money in EB-5, but at the same time, we've heard, more good with the EB-5 program, more return of capital than we do with investors losing it.
In fact, Radhika, I don't know if you've been seeing this, but people are more concerned right now, not necessarily with, will I get my money back? It's more like, when will I get my money back? Will it be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I think what investors also forget is there was a time where investors didn't get money back for, on average, I think much longer periods, you were seeing 7, 9 years.
Yeah.
Now it's much shorter, I put someone into a project last year where it was a 2-year return of capital. And so, not to say that there's necessarily guarantee, because you cannot guarantee as part of the stipulations of the program, but I think there's definitely talk of return of capital, more so than will I get my money back at all.
Yeah, well, there's so much more to discuss on this topic, Rebecca, Radhika. We have rush filings coming up.
Gosh.
We have so many issues, and let's see what else comes out of this gold card. But Radhika, please come back and chat with us.
Yes, I would love to.
Yeah, and it's been fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of Global Investment Voice. A huge thank you to all our listeners for tuning in and sharing this journey with us. Curious about unlocking the potential of global migration and citizenship? Make sure to visit us online at mshalaw.com and globalinvestmentvoice.com. Dive into our extensive library of podcast episodes. Stay ahead with the latest in migration news by signing up for our insider newsletter. Don't forget to connect with us on social media. Find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook to keep the conversation going. Remember, the insights shared in our podcast are for informational purposes only, so please seek tailored legal, financial, or investment advice where needed. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep investing smart and living well with Global Investment Voice. We'll see you on the next episode.